I've been a loner since I remember myself. My mom always had to forcefully make me leave the apartment to go play with other kids. I always sucked at networking and I failed to retain a single friendship from my childhood or even young adulthood. Right now, the circle of close people who I know in real life consists of roughly 5 individuals, and I talk on a daily basis only to 3 of them, and one of them is my husband. I cherish moments of solitude, and silence is my favorite sound in the world. And in this video, I will share with you 5 truths that I've learned throughout my personal evolution as a loner, and how I live with this knowledge now, because some of the insights were quite hard to chew. So if you think that we have things in common, maybe you will find some interesting food for thought in this video. On this channel, I talk about the gentle philosophy of finding and nourishing your true self, and lonership, lonerdom, or whatever noun is, has been and is an integral part of myself, although I've been embarrassed of this part for quite a big chunk of my life. My first disclaimer: a loner is not a sociopath, it's not a misanthrope, it's just a person who avoids or just doesn't actively seek any human interaction. And in the current state of the world, this is quite a reasonable inclination, don't you think? My second disclaimer: I'm not a mental health specialist, nor am I a life coach. Here I share only my subjective opinion and experiences that can be absolutely and beautifully different from yours. Contemplation and life analysis are my guilty yet life-enriching pleasures. There won't be any third disclaimer, so let's begin with a little test. To how many of these questions do you say yes? Do you enjoy doing things by yourself and tend to avoid any gatherings unless you really have to go? Do you take your time with yourself to ponder over decisions and plans in life instead of consulting others? Do you prefer not to ask for any help until it becomes an urgency? Do you find it hard and sometimes even draining to maintain interpersonal connections? Are you excited to figure out things on your own and don't need to be handheld through most experiences? And even with learning, you prefer to rely on yourself first? In fact, it doesn't matter how many questions you answered yes to. If you are a loner at heart, you probably already know this. I've known this since very early age, yet it still took me years to accept the first truth. I never managed to maintain friendships long enough due to many different reasons. I moved a lot, I changed places, I changed lifestyles, jobs, and even views on life, and therefore it was almost impossible to maintain the depth of communication. And maybe I sound like a stone-hearted person, but again, this was something that I had to accept in myself. I don't find any reason in keeping a connection for the connection's sake. I mean, if you lose a common ground with a friend, if you don't understand each other fully anymore, if life drifts you apart at such a huge distance, why keep this connection? On some rare occasions, though, I miss certain friendships and I even regret not saving them, but then I stop and ask myself, does this come from an idea or an illusion that I am in control of everything in my life, that it was me, only me, who let that human connection fade away? Or was it a work of life and that not all people are meant to accompany us throughout the whole life? The thing is that friendships last differently. They can be lifelong or exist only for an hour. Sometimes I think that people get too fixated on the numbers and the pure existence of connections and friendships, and whenever any of that connection is lost, a person might feel that they are losing a part of themselves. Is this a right feeling? I cannot judge. But what I can say is that I do feel judged by my culture and by the cultures where I used to live in, where I'm living now, for being a loner, and this is the fact. For some reason, being a loner is still a social stigma, and I don't understand it. Yet I'm finally allowing myself to embrace this and have just a couple of people who I can call true friends in real life, and at the same time be ready to part with them when and if the time comes. Small talks, shallow discussions, monologues under the disguise of dialogues, draining attempts to prove your point of view to someone who is just not into that. All this is such a waste of words and time. I hate all of those, and I tend to avoid having such conversations at any cost, even at the cost of seeming rude. It is like with unnecessary noise. I don't know if you notice this, but there are some people who tend to produce noise all the time in order to feel alive, because silence makes them so uncomfortable. And the same thing is with many conversations. Again, don't get me wrong, all people are different, and what I stand for is figuring out your own choices, figuring out what you think is good for yourself. I've known people who find a lot of comfort and inspiration in small talks and never-ending connections with as many people as possible, because it is theirs. The number of people who I've known in real life and who shared an outlook on life similar to mine is minuscule. I used to be so embarrassed if I had a companion or a guest at home and that person had to witness myself peeking out through the door eye, making sure that there are no neighbors in the hallway so that I can go out safely without the necessity to have any small talk with neighbors. To small talks, I prefer big talks about things that are deep, meaningful, and personal, talks that are filled with respect, genuine curiosity, and eagerness to exchange opinions. Unfortunately, such type of conversations is rare, but it's so worth having. A Soviet fiction author, Konstantin Paustovsky, wrote, "There are moments when I want to meet someone with whom I could feel free to talk about things like edelweiss or the smell of cypress cones. Unfortunately, I have not met such interlocutors in everyday life. They were only found in books." These two things get constantly confused, but self-centeredness is all about being self-absorbed and caring only about yourself and your own interests. Egocentrism is another word for this. I am a loner, but I'm genuinely interested in people and their stories. The most powerful narratives for me are not about the space or nature or, I don't know, anything else. It's about people and their choices, their paths, their joys and challenges. I collect such stories not in a soulless way, but like pebbles to remember the beauty and the grandeur of the ocean. But there are self-centered people who are anybody but loners, and these people keep building a thick wall around themselves, a thick wall of non-listening, non-acceptance, non-understanding of others. When you're a loner, you don't claim to be the center of the universe, and you don't view others only in relation to your own self, while a self-centrist does. A curious form of this is when a person sees another person not as a separate individual, but as a father figure, mother figure, sibling figure, etc. Thus, subconsciously or consciously trying to mold that person into someone familiar and ownable. I have a bunch of texts, developed ideas, and projects that I have never shown to anybody. Not because there is something in there that I don't want to be known or revealed, nothing like that. It's just because I'm quite aware that I won't be fully understood. The aloneness of your inner experience, feelings, and knowledge is real, yet it is so hard to accept. In a way, the whole life of a person is a quest for understanding and acceptance. We strive to get this acceptance from others in order to accept ourselves, our choices, our dreams, and needs. External validation and acceptance is such a weird relic of the ancient times, and somehow it's still driving our everyday existence. Expectations of being understood can be quite detrimental for your emotional and mental well-being. Life situations when I set the bar of those expectations very high and then watch them fail were the most challenging situations that I had to live through. Our closest people might not ever fully understand us, and there is nothing wrong with it. So many people struggle to express themselves through words or actions or any other means. So why should we expect to be well and fully understood if we don't express ourselves clearly? Also, your sharings with others will be most inevitably misinterpreted and distorted, which is not a bad or abnormal thing actually, because we all wear different glasses of perception, and you will never know what another person sees, feels, or thinks fully. We all look at life through the prism of our knowledge, experience, and culture, and there are no two identical minds. Accepting my loner nature, I'm now targeting these expectations at myself first. I turn inwards and I try to master my expressiveness through writing, through making art, through making these videos in order to understand myself first and fully. And maybe then I will no longer rely on the hope to be understood by others. That's why I will never get tired of promoting art and writing as very powerful tools of understanding yourself, even if no one ever sees the result. It doesn't matter. A loner doesn't equal a hermit. I am lucky to have a partner who understands and accepts my nature, and we echo each other in a way. And I'm also lucky to have other close people who know who I am and I know who they are. Respect and acceptance are the most important foundation pillars of any relationship. A loner is not a social reject. They can walk a path together with someone but still have a different experience through using their own sight and their own thought process without trying to mold themselves and their companions into somebody that they are not. Self-acceptance as a loner has been one of the most empowering acts for me, and it wasn't loud, it wasn't divisive, something like, oh no, I'm not like all of you stupid people. No, it's quiet and undemanding, and first and foremost, this fact doesn't make me worse or better than a non-loner. I hope with this video you got at least a little bit of support and understanding, because I'm almost 100% sure that if you've watched my ramblings until this very moment, we have a lot in common. So thank you for this. Feel free to share in the comments your own thoughts and experiences as a loner, what you've accepted about yourself and what you are still struggling with. Let's connect. As always, huge thanks to everyone who supports my work on Patreon and other tipping platforms, because thanks to you, I can make videos on this channel available for everyone to watch. And for now, be safe and keep your heart open, and I will see you soon. Пока-пока.
Oh, it's got a lot to say.